Alright, so there are various exercises for different parts of the body, but if you have been wondering how can I exercise my brain and become a genius, this video is for you. Productivity hack on how to become the smartest person in the world. Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go. Oh yeah. One, two, three, four. We're gonna.
Okay, so let's get straight into the video on various exercises that we can practice that can increase our brain capacity and in turn increase our productivity. So let's get straight into the tips. Number one, always have a task. Now this is what I do every week. Most times I set a goal, and challenging goals, for example, I could just get something challenging like every time I wake up I must commit myself to doing 20 push-ups. It's not really geared towards losing weight, if you kind of get what I'm talking about, but it's just a way to get my brain to focus on a particular task. Sometimes I just give myself assignments like I'm just going to read 20 pages of any book at all, not really necessarily for the information. Yes, I get information at that particular time where I carry out the task of reading the book, but what I necessarily do is developing focus, okay? So I keep a particular time, a particular space, just to get my brain to be used to getting focused in doing something and achieving a goal. I believe that if you do that, you can train your focus, especially for those who usually forget things easily, and for those who do not have that mental capacity or strength to keep to a task or whatever you're doing. You can use this tip, and when you do that, what happens is that you will develop your brain muscle to work in a very high level of productivity. Now I'll give you a tip. What I usually do is that I advise people to start usually first of all with consistency, and then you can increase the intensity. So feel free to start at your pace, but what I usually do is that I get a box and then I draw Monday to Friday, just like a timetable, and maybe 4 weeks. I usually like 4 weeks, 28 days. Remember, between 21 to 28 days is how you can form a habit, okay? So I tick the box, okay, and I have to commit to 28 days of doing this task. If I say every day when I wake up, the first thing I need to do is to do 10 push-ups. So when I do it on Monday, I tick and I put it beside my bed, somewhere very close where I could always see it. Now the goal is not to break the chain. Anytime I break the chain, I start all over again. I'll repeat that. Anytime I break the chain, I start all over again. It doesn't matter if it's 28 days and this is the 27th day. It means from that particular day is day 1 until the next 28 days. So I do that, I tick, 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 tick until it's the 28th day, and then that exercise is complete. And then I take a break, maybe 1 or 2 days, and then I start all over again, a new exercise, developing focus. So if you practice this, some of you can start for 3 days, and then you move to 7 days, and then you can move to 2 weeks, then you can move to 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Some of you can try 90 days, and some of you can try, what about a year, 365 days. I've never done that before. The maximum I've done is about 40 to 45 days, I think. So when you do this consistently, it trains your retention, it trains your focus, it trains your productivity and consistency. Number 2 point will be to learn to keep your promises. Learn to keep your words to yourself. I usually tell people this. Usually when you tell someone, I'll meet you up at 6 and you weren't able to do that, you feel very bad, right? You feel the need to explain, oh, I'm sorry my friend, or I'm sorry my brother, my sister, whoever, I was unable to meet up by 6. But when you tell yourself, for example, let's say my name is Justice, and I say, Justice, you're gonna do this at 6, and maybe I wake up at 7. You know, sometimes we really treat ourselves with disdain. We don't actually find the reason to explain to ourselves, to find out the reason why we didn't do what we did. We're just like, no problem, it's me, I'm gonna move on, I don't care whether I keep my words. One thing that causes is what I call brain debt. I'm gonna explain something to you. Whenever you say words, what happens is that your brain receives signals and your brain begins to prepare for an action. So there are hormones released and your body gets ready for an action. And whenever you don't keep your words, what happens is, I can call it action failure, okay? And when there is this action failure, the body goes to a state of shock and disappointment. And when you keep repeating this process all over and all over again, I mean, you see that your brain begins to experience that. That's why sometimes when you say a word, your brain goes like, he's not a serious person, she's not a serious person. Every time we've said we're going to do something, we're prepared to do it, and we never did it without any accountability. That's what happens, and that's why some of you do not remember the things you say, you do not remember the things you write down, you do not remember your promises, you try to commit to a task and it's like your brain is a rebel. It's because you've suffered from brain debt. So one way to revitalize your brain and one way to prevent prophylaxis of brain debt is to make sure that, I know sometimes you may have an activity planned out or you may have something you want to do and for some certain reasons you didn't do it. So then what should I do in that case? Sit yourself down. I do this all the time, and then I find out why I was unable to carry out such a task, and then I plan whether this task is supposed to be deleted, moved, or redone. By the time you do this, your brain will be able to understand that you're a serious person and whatever you say you will do. So all the time when you have your task to do or any goal to achieve, your brain sends all the energy and support because your brain loves to succeed and wants to push you to success. So one of the ways to exercise your brain and keep it at a genius level and increase your productivity is to learn to keep your words. You can't just treat others better than you treat yourself. You have to value your words. And finally, the last tip I would love to give today to exercise your brain is to learn to log in. I love that. It's a word I coined that I learned by trying to exercise my brain. Whenever I have a plan, I know we say we should write our plans down, but one thing that has helped me is the ability to understand that my body functions like a machine. So it's all about input and output. So writing your plans is not enough. Form the habits of reading aloud your plans like once or twice. When you wake up in the morning, if you have a plan to go to school at 9, one thing I will do, if it's for me, I usually read, Edward will have to go to school at 9. Literally, I daydream about waking up at that time. I daydream about getting ready on time and achieving my goal. And I find that most times I don't even really need an alarm to wake myself up because I have logged in the details. So I know most people are good at writing goals, but do not just end at writing goals. There is something about the spoken word. When you speak a word into existence, what happens is that the whole of nature and the whole of the universe begins to cooperate with you to achieve whatever you've said. These are 3 tips to help your brain function at optimum level of productivity. Exercises number 1, make sure you always have a task every week to train your focus. Number 2, make sure you keep your plans and your commitment to yourself to avoid brain debt. And number 3, make sure that you practice logging in. For those of you who have difficulty in waking up in the morning, I do not have difficulty in waking up in the morning because of this ability of logging in. So if I want to sleep at 12 and I want to wake up at 3, I don't just plan it, I repeat it over and over to myself before I sleep. Edward, you have to wake at 3. Edward, you have to wake at 3. And believe me, believe you, I wake up exactly at 3. Why? Because I've put in the imputed system. It also helps with your goals. If you keep saying your goals to yourself, one thing that will happen, you see that unconsciously you've trained your focus, unconsciously you've trained your brain to accept the realities of the things that you want to do. So when you're faced with challenges, when you're faced with problems, when you're faced with contradictory ideas to that which you have or you've already set your mind to do, you see, because you've repeated the words over and over to yourself, you see that you have the ability to stick, you already have the information, you already have the strength, the courage to pull through. challenges. So these 3 tips, I believe, if you practice, you will actually really function on a very high level of productivity. So let's get on with this exercise. Could we have like a challenge this week? Try to practice these 3 things, and I want to see in the comment box if you would do. If you're up for the challenge, write it down. I am up for the challenge. So let's have like a hashtag BE. All right, brain exercise. You try this for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. I would love to see your experience. Did it help you? Did it improve your life and your productivity? Share with us tips and everything, and that would be great. Alright, so I would love to read something for you today. It says, "But is a dream killer. There are no buts. But is an excuse we make for our limitations. And when we get to argue for our limitations, we get to keep them." So there are no buts. No buts why you shouldn't practice today. Do not argue for limitations, because when you do argue in their favor, you get to keep them. If this video has been of any source of value and you've gotten information that has helped you, why don't you just like, subscribe, click the notification bell, comment over and over and over and over again, and share more tips on how we can exercise the brain. I mean mental exercise, of course. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.